Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yannick Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, our guest is Debbie Miglaw. Debbie is head of digital solutioning and business development at Broadridge. She and her team of digital sales specialist solutions, architects, and business analysts are responsible for consulting with clients to define the digital solutions that support their digital transformation and customer experience goals. The team of experts work with clients, business, and technology stakeholders to map the solution from ideation to implementation. Debbie has extensive experience in helping clients with their print to digital transformations. Prior to her current role, Debbie was responsible for designing and executing the product vision and strategy of Broadridge Customer Communications omni-channel solutions. So without further delay, sit back, plug your earphones in, and let's jump right into this conversation with Debbie. Welcome, Debbie.
Thank you, Yannick. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Now, could you start off by sharing with our listeners a little bit about your journey, how it is that you got from where you were to where you are today?
Well, I've been here quite a while. It started, believe it or not, 26 years ago within the Broadridge space. I started with a company that was considered USCS International, which was acquired by DST Systems. And in 2016, Broadridge acquired the DST Output business. And as part of that, we really brought together the best of the customer communications business across all vertical markets. And along that journey, I spent the majority of my time heading up and leading the product organization to deliver solutions across print and digital services. And I continue on in that in the last 3 years, really help focus on, as you said in the intro, the solutioning and helping our clients find the right solution to solve for their business objectives.
All right, perfect. Now, one of the reasons why we were very intrigued to interview, I believe when we started this conversation, it would have been Matt Swain, was about the report that was shared with me when the interview request was presented on your 6th annual CX and Communications Consumer Insight Survey. I understand the survey covers the overall consumer sentiment around CX within different industries. So could you share with us a little bit about the results from that survey? Maybe some key things that came out of that survey?
Yes, happy to. We're very excited with the 2024 results that we've published out in the market. And one of the most prominent things that we found in the data is really that in the last 5 years, you could say 6, I think as most people know, 2020, we didn't do the survey. But over that time span, the number of consumers, the percentage that are dissatisfied with customer experience and believe companies need to improve that experience has doubled. So it's gone from 35% having a sentiment that is saying it needs to be better to 70%. So it's pretty significant in terms of the fact that the expectations continue to grow, but the companies aren't necessarily achieving it at the same rate. So that's probably the first one that I would say stands out a lot. We also still see some things around personalization. So when we look at the information, we find that 90% of consumers think that it's important for companies to honor their preferred communication method and a personalized communication, but only 31% think the companies are doing a good job of honoring those preferences and making it a personal experience. And then the other third point I would say is really around data security. That's continued to be there. I'm not sure it'll ever change, in my personal opinion. However, that consumers continue to crave that better experience, that more than half, 54%, are willing to share personal data if it's going to improve experience. So that's really telling. And then I'll say the last point I would say, Yannick, is that we did ask this year about AI because it's definitely out there in market. And one of the things that we found is, varying feedback, of course, but Gen Z out of all the groups are particularly optimistic about the use of AI. And 76% are actually saying that they have used it in some fashion. and 46% say it's actually improved their experience. So it's just a little tidbit, maybe not the top three kernels that I previously mentioned, but something for us to keep an eye on.
All right, very fascinating. So the study was done across different industries, right?
That's correct.
Could you share with our listeners, like maybe the sample size and what specific industries were covered when the survey was done?
Yes, happy to. So this was a North American survey. It's about 75% in the US and 25% in Canada. There were 4,010 residents that were 18 years and older that was doing this study. It was executed in November of 2023. So that's the high level background. And then we do actually ask about the types of industries that are providing the best experience and around the communications. And so those industries vary from banking, credit card, utilities, healthcare, health insurance, telecommunications, investments, retirement, insurance, loans. And then you could say like maybe an other for those that don't have answers, but we typically hit those. I think it's 10 particular industries stand out in our report.
All right, perfect. So, very, very good insights, especially for those of our listeners that are in the United States and Canada. We do have a lot of listeners that are outside of that region, but it's still fascinating information to keep into consideration because probably the same execution could be done for your region. If you're
That's
listening to
right.
this and you're not in North America, you could possibly do something similar to what Broadridge did because the industries exist in these regions. They just probably don't have the data to support it. So, thank you so much for sharing, Debbie.
Of course.
Now, Debbie, based on your own experience in the whole customer experience space, because you have a lot of background in that, especially working with Broadridge and your previous experience, and of course, seeing that we're basically halfway through 2024, what do you think are some trends that will continue and maybe even some new ones that you're hoping to see evolve or even get more prominent?
That's a good question. I would say the trends that we see is really a combination of how do we accelerate that digital transformation and improve the customer experience and also lower costs, right? And so, especially more so probably in the US than some of the other areas like Canada and such, the postal rates increase dramatically. So, top of mind for companies is to actually reduce that paper and try to get to digital quickly. But also, how do you do that, right? So, paperless adoption strategies is going to continue to be one of the top initiatives and trends that we see that will not change, I don't think, anytime soon. But I think really what's happening is our companies out there in the industries, they're really looking to figure out how do they best do it. We sometimes talk about, especially you've talked to Matt in the past, Matt Swain, and it's the carrot versus the stick often comes up. And we're seeing a mixture of trial and error in there, especially with the stick. We're really looking at how do people actually accelerate that customer experience in a way that potentially doesn't have that heavy IT cost to do it. So I think we're starting to also see a trend around the make, buy, build kind of conversation, right? Do you build, do you buy, do you partner? And so seeing a lot of that in order to actually accelerate that transformation.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, Debbie, what's the one online resource, tool, website, or app that you absolutely can't live without in your business?
Well, that's interesting. For me, I use so many. Our company, probably from a perspective of, I'll say, our research uses a variety of different tools. We all use LinkedIn as one source, but more than anything, when we're looking at customer experience, we look at things like user testing as a way to gauge what the consumer sentiment is against the communication experience. So that's definitely one especially in the customer experience and communications and consulting area. So we definitely rely on that. And believe it or not, we like to just go out and essentially see and experience the experiences for ourselves, right? So, meaning we might actually go to a lot of the companies that we're either talking to as prospective clients or existing clients to get a sense of competitive landscape of what the best customer experiences are. So a lot of times that personal research is the best tool that we have.
All right, thank you so much for sharing. Now, could you also share with our listeners one or two books that you've read? Could be a book that you read recently or even one you read a very long time ago, but it has had a profound impact on you, whether personally or professionally.
Oh, that's a good question. I now can't remember the name of the book, unfortunately. Um, but it was quite some time ago, there was a book that was really around innovation and the way we think and what innovation means. And a lot of it had to do with the small startup business. And it really made me think how you can actually have that startup mentality and how you apply it into a larger corporation. And I think that's one thing. I have the privilege of working with the team that does a lot of that innovation for Broadridge in terms of the innovation lab and R&D. And so our chief digital officer, Rob Krugman, spends a lot of time going out and exploring these different opportunities. And so I think the creation of that particular unit within our company in the last couple of years has really helped kind of expand the opportunities that we might be able to bring to market.
All right, sounds fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Now, could you also share with our listeners what's the one thing that's going on in your life right now that you are really excited about? Either something you're working on to develop yourself or your people.
Good question. I think right now our focus short term happens to be the end of our fiscal year. So we have very aggressive sales goals from that perspective. It's there. I think ironically, when I talk about end of year, the personal side of that is it's the end of the school year going on right now. So we're in the week of things like my daughter's eighth grade graduation, kind of those activities. So it's kind of interesting that the timing of our fiscal is also the end of school year activities. And so they're really aligned on staying focused, getting through all the activities that are there. So very much a streamlined set of activities, both personally and professionally.
All right, thank you so much for sharing. No, you do a lot of work as a leader, Debbie, in your organization. And I imagine as a leader, you have to kind of hone and develop other people's skills so that they can become truly functional in their role, but not necessarily from a technical perspective, but also from a development perspective, meaning they have the ability to motivate and inspire others. What would you say as a leader is maybe two or three things that you believe is critical to kind of raise the team members' competencies up, especially as it relates to their behaviors in developing leadership skills?
Yeah, good question. I think for me, a lot of it is empowering the employees to essentially try and do. And a lot of times that's what creates the growth. So a lot of the approach that I've taken as a leader over the years is after we've done sort of, I'll say, like you said, the technical type education, the product knowledge, some of those kinds of things, the company is then we do a lot of, I'll say, ride along. So ride along with a meeting to listen, hear how it's actually executed, especially if it's like a sales or a product related meeting. And then giving the opportunity for that person to actually lead, where you sort of follow on. So you're there as a safety net to help. And I think that really empowers people to let them be the experts when a leader or someone that might have more experience is on the phone. Because a lot of times what happens is people naturally defer to the person with more knowledge. So I found that that's a really good way to raise that confidence and give them experience. And again, a little bit of a safety net to get there. And typically those folks that have the aptitude really just run with it. And before you know it, you're basically they're running on their own and they don't necessarily need you there. So that's a great thing to see as a leader. And I think the other is really kind of coaching around the communication aspect. And that really varies. I know for like in my product role, a lot of times in the past, it was very technical, I guess you could say, right? The accuracy, what you're saying, and then trying to balance that when the right opportunity is there. Do you need to be a little bit more optimistic and sales oriented? Do you need to be more practical? Here's what's real. And guiding people through that process of understanding the situation that you're in order to convey the right message, right? And it's not about accuracy of the information. It's just more about that influential speak when it's appropriate, when it's not type situation. So those are a couple of things that really stand out for me.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, our listeners would have tapped into this episode, Debbie, and they're intrigued with you as an individual and they'd like to connect with you online, even with your organization. Where is the best place that they can find you online?
Best place is LinkedIn. So you can find me as Debbie Miglaw. It's a unique name, so you'll be able to find me there quickly. And then Broadridge.com, you can look for the customer communications. And then, of course, I would say my colleagues, if they're interested in the communications and CX report, Matt Swain is also available on LinkedIn.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, before we wrap our episodes up, we always like to ask our guests, do you have a quote or a saying that during times of adversity or challenge, you'll tend to revert to this quote? If for any reason you get derailed or you get off track, the quote kind of helps to get you back on track. Do you have one of those?
I do. My quote is, "The best is yet to come."
All right. Do you like to elaborate a little bit on it for our listeners?
Yeah, I think for my view, it's tough when you're in it. And a lot of times we forget to look ahead and how we're going to get past a difficult situation. And so I think if we just, have that little bit more optimistic view that on the other side, things will get better. And so it's kind of funny. It comes up in other panels that I've spoken on in person. And, I always say it's also a song. So it's like you can have it as a motto, a song, a saying, but the best is yet to come. So whether it is in your personal life or in work, I could say the best customer experience is yet to come, right? The best for my daughter's future is yet to come. So kind of looking at it from that angle.
Ah, okay. Very nice. All right. Well, Debbie, thank you so much for jumping on this podcast and sharing the great insights that you did about the report that Broadridge did, as well as in your own function and capacity in terms of leading your team and some recommended trends that you believe will continue as well as evolve in the space of customer experience. The conversation was extremely insightful, and I'm sure our listeners gleaned quite a lot of information from our conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Yanika. I appreciate having the time to spend with you.
Just want to remind our listeners you can follow us on X at Navigating CX, and feel free to join our private Facebook group, Navigating the Customer Experience Community. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant. We also have a new book available on Amazon, The ABCs of a Fantastic Customer Experience. It's available in ebook and paperback. So if you want to increase revenue in your organization, build a stronger service culture, and create employees or develop employees who are really mastering service delivery in your business, you need to grab a copy of this book. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.